I want to welcome everyone tonight to another one of our educational forums that's focused on providing information and basically improving all of our understanding of the issues that are facing Alabama, especially as we're trying to get people more civically engaged and to get out the vote and just, basically bringing us all together. And tonight's educational forum is entitled From Ground Up, Understanding Community Challenges and Community Concerns. And I want to thank Onayemi Williams, the Deputy Director of Faith in Action Alabama. The information you're going to hear tonight is just an amazing resource, and she's sharing it with us along with her team, most of them are here tonight. And I'm going to hand this off to Onayemi to be our guide to understand the analysis, the surveys, and the reports that they did, and look forward to learning a lot. And Onayemi, I'm going to hand it off.
First, I want to thank everybody for coming and joining with us today. We want to thank the League of Women Voters for this opportunity to share with you all our labor of love around what it means to do the work in Black community. I also want to say that when you're in Black community, when you're with family and friends, you'll see my first assistant here. It is a testament of what it means to be fully part of your community, fully part of your family, and how we have to show up in this work. We have to bring everything that comes along with us into the room. No. So we just ask each of you to join us as we take this journey over what we did the final quarter of 2023 as we're leading into 2024. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. I have dropped in the chat the full copy of the report for everyone to have the ability to read the full report. And we will get started. So again, the project is entitled From the Ground Up. And it is a project where we did intentional listening, deep listening in the communities in which we live. Hold on 1 second. Try to get through. My name is Onayemi Williams. I am the Deputy Director of Faith in Action Alabama, and I am chairing. I am chairing tonight's meeting. And so we also want to, just as we start this off, we want to give reverence to those who helped to bring this thought into reality for us. Alabama Forward was the fiscal sponsor of this project, and Faith in Action Alabama, along with Transform Alabama, were the organizations that hosted this project. Everything from allowing us to leverage their relationships with some of our community partners to helping us to understand what was required in order for us to move into community. We want to make sure people understand this was a conversation of joy with our people in the community, which is often not the lens from which our people are addressed. And so this was about how do we go to our people in our community, have deep listening, and have the ability to document what was heard in a way that's beneficial for those who are in community doing the work of voter engagement, that are moving campaigns and don't always have the wherewithal or the space to listen to what's taking place at the kitchen table of the homes in Alabama, but especially the African American community. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ranada, who was our research reviewer for this project.
Thank you, Onayemi. Hello, everyone. Good evening. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for having us. My name is Ranada Robinson. I'm the owner of Robinson Research and Consulting. And just to give you some of my background, I'm also the research director at New Georgia Project, which is a 501c3 voter education and engagement organization that works across the state of Georgia. And in this role, I oversee research that informs our organizational strategy, and it focuses primarily on Black voters and what we call high opportunity voters, who are those voters who are often discounted and overlooked because of various factors, including the infrequency that they vote and their cynicism. I am a proud graduate of a private HBCU right outside of my hometown of Jackson, Mississippi, called Tougaloo College. And I also hold 2 Master of Science degrees from Georgia State University. One is in risk management and insurance, and the other is in urban policy studies with concentrations in policy analysis and economic development. So to get to this particular project, Phyllis Hill of Black Southern Women's Collaborative contacted me and said, "Hey, this group of fellows did this amazing project and I need someone to compile the data." And so I was very excited to dig in. But let me tell you, before we get into the findings, I want you to know that the project itself is a finding. That they were able to engage nearly 1,900 Black Alabama residents across the state and beyond is a learning in itself. The secret sauce of this project was that these organizers took to the community and showed genuine interest. They exercised patience in explaining what this was for and why it was worth the residents' time to participate. And they helped them in completing those surveys. They didn't just give them a link and walk off. And so after this, they will again be engaged to validate them and to let them know the power of their collective voices by actually saying, here is what we found from what you said. Here are these findings. They are from you. So many times the narrative that we hear in the media and in the public square is one of dismissiveness. We continuously have to tell people that Black people, Black voters are not a monolith. And mainstream research doesn't always reflect it. So when we are relegated to a handful of people within a sample size of a survey, and then those findings are limited to those that support the prevailing narrative, which is that Black voters are not worth the investment beyond traditional transactional engagement. And that's what many Black voters experience before elections, and it's frankly not effective. The research that I've led here in Georgia has shown time and time again that Black voters need consistent interest in conversation, genuine conversation, and they need to see the proof in the pudding, which is through investment and resources in their communities. And so when that happens and when voters feel heard, they also feel powerful, and then they're more likely to show up. So to build on to this survey that the team developed and deployed, we also conducted focus groups to provide some additional context. And so it's important to note here that many of the folks who completed this survey, and you can see like how widespread this survey was. So this is not one particular county. This is folks from all over the state of Alabama and even into some other places. But they were people who were visiting Alabama, so they have connections to Alabama. And so one of the things that I want you to keep in mind as you are hearing these findings, that many of these folks had never been asked to complete a survey or to participate in a focus group. And so I cannot emphasize enough the need to first commit to engaging undercounted and underrepresented populations to really understand their needs and to help them pursue the dreams that they have about their own futures and about the future of the communities in which they live. And so here are 3 findings that I want to uplift before I hand it over to this passionate and amazing team. So number one, there is a new congressional district in Alabama that could very well be leveraged as a tool to amplify Black community needs. But we found that 40% of the people that we talked to were not aware of this new district. 40%. So there is a clear indication that more education is needed, not only throughout the process of getting the district to where it is, but also in securing what that congressional district can mean for electoral politics in Alabama. Secondly, voting is not the only show of power that there is. Building true power starts with voting, yes, but then it builds onto that in different ways. And one of those ways is jury duty service. And we explore that in this report. 30% of the respondents have never received a jury duty summons. That's almost a third of the folks that were talked to have never in their lives received a jury duty summons. Another 30% have not received a summons in over a decade. And so what we found in focus groups was that one, those who had received a summons within the last decade weren't necessarily aware of how important jury duty is or the link between jury duty service and being a registered voter. We also heard that even when they did serve, it was not a pleasant experience because they found themselves in the minority, having to determine if they were willing to speak up in a group where it seemed like people were not actually listening to the evidence presented. So I want that to be a theme in the back of your mind as well. 30% had never received a jury duty summons, and another 30% hadn't received one in the last decade. That's 60% of the almost 1,900 people that were talked to. And then finally, number three. So this quote, just so that you all see the deck, this quote goes to that notion of the experience. So this person actually did participate in jury duty, but was very uncomfortable in that experience. So the third thing that I want to uplift today is that Black people actually know what issues impact them, and we should believe them, and we should be curious about their experiences so that we can work together to develop solutions. So in this survey, our respondents identified housing, reproductive health care, and community safety as their top 3 issues of concern. And we all know on this call that national and state data sources back up the severity of these issues in the state of Alabama. So again, Black voters know what the problems are, but in order to get effective and long-lasting solutions, we need to listen to them, to hear how those issues are impacting them in their daily lives so that we can then come up with solutions that really will address the issues. And so I hope that as you all peruse the report, that you will find value and that you will really lean into like how can we approach election cycles differently. How can we do more than put up yard signs in the yards? How can we do more than making sure people get mailers? How do we really engage folks so they can become lifelong and regular civically engaged folks that are working together to make this community a better place for all of us? And so with that, I will turn it back over to Onoyemi so she can talk about the 2nd Congressional District.
So yes, what we found was the 2nd Congressional District, many of the participants that actually lived in the 2nd Congressional District, when they were asked how did they hear about it, they found out about it through news media. But of those who were in the focus group, there was a focus group that contained only people who lived in that 2nd Congressional District. Many of them didn't know they even lived in the Congressional District. They were shocked by the fact that they were in that Congressional District, and then they also didn't know what that meant. for them in their everyday lives as individuals, and what that not only meant for them on a local basis, on a state basis, nor on a national basis. They had no understanding of what that meant. One of the things they also talked about is what is needed in your community to help you engage leaders. And so when they said engage leaders, we had to dig a little bit around that response. Many of them felt like not only was the leaders of the elected officials not engaged with them, but they also felt that those who were supposed to be doing the community organizing in their community did not engage with them enough. And so that lack of engagement left many of them just detached from being able to be part of the change that they were looking for in their communities. And so what we understand is that engaged leaders, engaged leadership, engaged public service equals engaged community. And so a lot of them were interested in having the opportunity to volunteer in their community. And one of the things that we found it very interesting, of almost 1,900 people that we talked to, only 0.3% was actively involved in their community, where many of them were looking for an opportunity to have an on-ramp into this work. And so I'll pass it to T. Barnes.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tiambe Barnes, and I am the program officer at Southern Partners Fund, and I'm very glad to be here with you all this afternoon. One of the key items that we thought about when we did this project was we had to get back to the basics. It was very important for us to make sure that we connect where folks are. As a lifelong member of the AME Church and a proud graduate of the Alabama State University, who lives in a small town where only 19% of the people look like me. Oftentimes people tend to overlook institutions like the Black Church, like the HBCUs and neighborhood gatherings. These places have been pivotal in making sure that Black people have the information. As you can see from the results, that there were a lot of people who did not know anything. But mainstream media tells us that the Black church is not what it used to be, or the HBCUs is not this. So they get shunned away. But we had to remember that when we are understanding the voting challenges and community concerns, that's where the people are. That's where they're getting their information. That's where they're getting trusted information. That's where they are also helping them to know like what is going on, and they can hear from each other, because a lot of times organizations are not there. There are communities that are very, very small where big organizations, they'll come through, but then after they're gone, who's there to help them? It is also important to realize how HBCUs educate our students. They educate the community through service projects or no matter what it is, but they want, in the process of us having the conversations in our faith-based communities, it was also very uplifting to know how they were very engaged and they learned a lot. They knew a lot more than some of our other people. Next slide, Aniemi. They knew more about some of the things that was going on. And they talked about, many of them talked about, this is where they learn, how they learn about what's going on, how they can get their voices heard, and also how people come there, or sometimes people come there and share information, but then they also have their own groups within. So it is very important that we understand when we are talking about community organizing 101, we have to know that partnering with organizations like the Black Church, like HBCUs, they are vital to our society. They are where people meet and are reminded that their voices can be heard and their ideas and concerns are valid. They are in the community, they have been there, and most likely they're going to be there when it's all over. So please make sure that we understand what that looks like, how they are a part of the ecosystem and what they mean, even when mainstream media says, oh, we don't do them. I'll pass it on to Cameron at this time.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. My name is Cameron Thigpen. My pronouns are she, hers, and I am the executive director and creator of HIP Interests, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that I started. And we advocate for social justice education through media and community programs. I also advocate for radical self-care and self-liberation. I received my bachelor's from the University of Alabama at Birmingham. I got my bachelor's in political science with a double minor in African American studies and human rights. And I have also received my master's degree in public administration with a concentration on nonprofit management. And I do have a research background, and I have published a thesis on how the nonprofit sector can be used as a method for addressing social equity and racial terror. So I am going to discuss the recommendations that we have created from this report. Thank you. So our first recommendation, before I talk about the recommendation, I do kind of want to ground all of us and say it's important for us to provide recommendations. As social justice organizers, we did a lot of work to provide education on these issues and the importance of these issues, but we also want to provide recommendations that are sustainable, that are tangible, and things that can be done. So yes, it's important to have these recommendations to push this project forward. So our first suggestion is we want this survey to be extended to gather additional responses in additional communities within the state of Alabama. Even though Black residents make up 25.9% of Alabama's population, there are other people that live in Alabama that have concerns about the issues that we've discussed this evening, and we feel like it's important to include everyone that lives in the state of Alabama in the discussion. We don't want to just stop with 1,880 people. Our next recommendation is this survey was really a first step for us. It was the first touch, kind of picking away at the ice, if you will, for many Black residents who hadn't really heard about these issues before and weren't aware of these issues or the congressional district or the importance of serving on jury duty. So we want to use this report as really kind of a first stepping stone for further engagement with these communities and continuous organizing. Our third recommendation is that the findings from this report can be used as a good model to train more organizers in the state of Alabama. We were on the grounds, we were talking to people. We weren't just, like they said, just giving the survey and saying, thank you, bye. We were there. If someone didn't know how to do the survey, we walked them through it. We had paper surveys, we had QR codes, so we made it super, super accessible for people to be able to complete it. And having these different methods of organizing and also having tangible research that we can gather what we found and put it together and produce a report that we can discuss as a community and as a state, it can definitely be used as a model to train other organizers on how to take voices, how to listen, how to take concerns and take voices and produce data that can be taken to the people in power to make decisions. Our next suggestion is that these findings should be a wake-up call for Alabama elected officials from the state to the local level, from the state level to the federal level, and also philanthropic organizations. And we want them to know that the people that completed this survey are these Black residents of Alabama. They know what's going on. They're informed. They know the issues. They're able to name the issues, and they are paying attention to who is engaging with them and who is not. And they know, and they are looking for their elected officials to address these concerns. So it's important that that the findings from this report kind of serve as a wake-up call to our elected officials, that they can be heard and work every single day to better their lives and create an open space if they don't, and be held accountable. And next, there's a need, for stronger institutions and alignment among those institutions that can provide knowledge and build power in Black communities. So we are advocating for a need for stronger spaces to be able to discuss these issues, and how can we build power? How can we learn about power mapping? How can we know how these issues affect us? So we need stronger spaces to learn about these. And our final recommendation is having cross-generational conversations. So I am the youngest person on the team, and it's been a great opportunity for me to be in this space and kind of be at the table and kind of serve as kind of a generational kind of binder, if you will, kind of like a bridge. Often young people are told that we don't know anything and we're wasting time and we're not as engaged. So it was very crucial and imperative for me to be at the table and kind of listen and learn from my peers, but also offer my own experiences as a young person. I believe that each one of us serves as a bridge for generations to be able to listen and work together for this collective and intersectional struggle. We wanted this conversation and our engagement to stretch across generations, from young people to children to older generations and even our elders. So one value that I have is from Huey Newton, that young people inherit the revolution, and we need to be at the table and in the conversation around building power in our state. But that's so much easier said than done. And I feel like as a young person, I do want to encourage that we listen to each other more, that we continue to have cross-generational conversations and work to sharpen each other, and not have the advice that you all have left us fall on deaf ears, but that we can really pick up the torch and really run with it and carry this beautiful work forward. So these are our recommendations from this report, and I will pass it back to Anna Yemi for questions.
So, I'm going to stop the share. Are there any questions about the report? Go ahead, Mr. Bonner.
Yes, good evening, and thanks for the invitation to participate. Thanks for the stellar work that y'all did on this. I'm very much appreciative of it, and look forward to working with you and others that are on the call as we work to improve life in Alabama for citizens, particularly the young Black women that you've talked about, all of the Black women. You said intergenerational, cross-generational. Yeah, so we're talking about all of that. My question is the chart that you have, you show 1,880 respondents and persons that you sat down and had conversations with. And so I do have an interest across the entire state. Let me say that first, but more tangentially, with respect to North Alabama, you had, I think, 12, 9, and 5, and 2 respondents in North Alabama. Is there a way to see what those respondents said that were located in North Alabama?
So we have not done the analysis based on geography. What is in the report is analysis by the method of collection. And so you'll see like the responses of folks who were engaged through the church, those who were engaged through the HBCU events, et cetera, et cetera. So there are a couple of places where it is by the county because that was a specified method of engagement. But we'll take a look. We'll see what's possible.
Well, I'd just be interested. Not that I'm not concerned about the whole state. I'm very appreciative of this, but because I'm doing a more focused look inside of Huntsville and Madison County, I'm looking at the minority districts in Huntsville and Madison County. Districts 1, District 5 for the city of Huntsville, District 6 for Madison County. And so there's a definite cross section of hopefully information there that I think that would be gained to an effort that I'm working on. And so would love to be able to hear what's on people's minds so that at least going in, I won't try to replow the ground that y'all have done, but at least be smart and aware so that I can engage further. In other words, build on the work that you've done. So whoever might have did those in North Alabama, I mean, if I gotta get offline with you, or however you can do that, I think that would be very valuable to the work we're trying to do locally. But I do have an interest statewide too, because I do work with the League of Women Voters, leadership, Kathy and team, and everybody in a number of endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you. Pia is next, and then I was looking at, there's a few questions I thought I'll read out after she's done.
Just before Pia go for Mr. Bonner, also I want to bring out that just because we had a number on the chart, that's not inclusive of all the surveys that we pulled from that area. That was just part of how it fell out when we were just for imaging purposes, because those numbers on that actual map does not equal up to almost 1,900 surveys that we did, because we actually pulled quite a few more surveys out of the Huntsville area. And so The reason why it's important that we share that with you is because some of those surveys were collected, they were students. So they're on campus in Huntsville, but their zip code where they lived might have been somewhere else.
Okay. All right. Well, whatever we can use to get to that, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Go ahead, Ms. Pia.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Wow, this was great. Presentation, a report. Well, of course, I'm intrigued as a social scientist myself. I really applaud you on the methodology too, to use focus groups and standardized surveys. 30% of your respondents have never received a jury summons, and 10 not in the last decade. Did that factor in our voter registration? Because if you're not registered, of course you are not. If your registration is not current, right? Has that been factored in? And my second question is too, it seems like there's quite some interest in getting engaged, right? Now, you gave some recommendations, but do we also know in what particular areas, they want to get involved in, what type of organizations? Those are my questions.
So Ranada, do you want to take the data part first and then I can follow up?
Sure. So, this survey doesn't have a ton of demographics for us to do crosstabs. And so we don't have the correlation or the
Mm-hmm.
calculation of how many folks were not registered to vote. But I do think it's still an important finding, because even if like no matter what the correlation is, I think it's important to note that engagement itself is still lacking.
Yes.
For 40% of the 1,900 people that were talked to actually have been able to serve in some capacity and within the last decade is still an important finding. But of course, we can't dig into all of the causes.
Right, right. I understand. I mean, of course, if part of it is because they're not currently registered, then it's an easy fix, right? We just need to register them, right? But I'm sure it doesn't explain the whole picture. Yes, you're absolutely right.
I would add to that though, because one of the things that we kind of explored in the focus groups was that linkage between the two. And I think a good thing or an interesting thing that we could test in a future survey is if people would be more willing to register to vote if they knew that jury duty was something that you are able to do as a result of that. And
Yeah,
because it won't work without it, and how important jury duty is, and understanding the need of representation on juries for whatever type of cases come up.
absolutely. And I think for any voter registration drive, to also point out that, voter registration comes with eligibility to serve on a jury. And so many people of color complain rightfully that, there are these, predominantly white, juries that voter registration is also important for that very purpose.
Absolutely.
So as one of and I'm going to answer 2 questions. I saw in the chat, somebody wanted to know how many surveys did we send out?
Mm-hmm.
We did not send this survey out. About, I would say 98% of all of our surveys were conducted face-to-face. This was not something that was just sent out and left. These were done because we were in the streets with people. We were attending faith house convenings, and we were showing up where people were. So we did not send out our survey. The AME Zion Church and the AME Church did send it out to their parishioners, but with that, we also conducted trainings around the survey with those faith houses. I think we did something around, how many was it, 10 or 15 in-person trainings with the AME and the AME Zion faith houses at their districtly and quarterly conferences that take place at the last quarter of the year. Also to that, while we were out there in some of our more remote and rural areas, we met women who had been registered voters. They were in their 70s, headed into their 80s, that had never received a jury summons, had been registered to vote for decades, and had never received a jury summons. And we were having Alabama has the highest number of death penalty cases that have been overturned due to the juries being bad. And so when we're talking about from a criminal justice community safety lens, that's dangerous for communities of color. Because for us to go into a room and be accused of a crime and then having to stand before people who do not understand the culture of the community, and sometimes things that we may say like, show me your face card. I don't have time to explain to you what that means when I'm fighting for my life. Because show me your face card, and some people, you say that to them, they're going to think that you're threatening them. Actually, what the young person is saying to you is, just tell me the truth about the situation. But again, if that's not part of what's going on in those jury rooms, if we're not looking at how our prison system in Alabama is one of the most deplorable in the country, and the number of African Americans that are entrapped in that system, and they're taking cases to trial because they're fighting for their lives, and then we're not even getting a fair shake to even have an opportunity to weigh in on that. Is problematic. And the other thing, when we were talking about they are wanting to get engaged in their community, and that's why it's important for people to hear this. How are we inviting people into the work? A lot of people are going into communities doing things around the community that's very transactional versus extending it to the community to work with them and teaching them and training them and giving them the tools to do this work when we're not there or when they're not passing by. And so it's a conversation about how are we inviting and training people into community to take part of this work.
Judy, this is Marva. I'd like, if possible, to say something. I'm 85 years old. To find me on this site in the first place. I'm an HBCU graduate from Bennett College, class of 1961. I want to mention that SB 91 was in the legislature this year and failed. I am so happy to see these young people this evening working as hard as you are and doing what you're doing. But I want to, I'm sure you may know this already, but if not, I want to at least let you know. Each year, more than 2,000 high school seniors graduate in the state of Alabama. But they do not receive automobile keys with their diplomas. They have absolutely no way of looking for jobs, attending any of the local colleges, or doing anything to enhance their lives. They graduate and they're standing with absolutely nothing. SB 91 was discussed and did not really get out of committee in the last legislative session. Linda Coleman Madison sponsored that bill. The bill had it passed, would have gathered $5 per license plate for automobiles or cars, trucks, whatever, in the state of Alabama. That would go into the Alabama Transportation Trust Fund, which passed in 2018. However, the Alabama legislature has not been able to find the funding to put into that trust fund. But I'll take you back, I won't take all night, but I'll take you even further back on one other thing. In 1951, the people from the automobile industry, Goodyear, General Mills, and a few others, lobbied the Alabama state legislature to make certain that all of the gasoline tax money, including the gasoline taxes that buses paid, would go to only bridges and highways. And in 1952, the legislature passed it. Now, at that time, Black folks were not even allowed to vote. And this was before Rosa Parks sat down on the bus. And they did not set up a fund for public transportation. The state does not give 1 cent to public transportation. And so as a result, we have students and we have old people like me that just can't get around. I'm driving simply because I have to. But getting away from me. All I'd like to do is ask you, if you and your organization and the 1,900 people that you're in contact with, if you could apprise them of what I've just told you, that maybe we can get the word out statewide to try to aim for change so that everyone can have public transportation, even folks who have cars. We need to be able to have people travel wherever they need to go. I'll stop talking now. but I'd like to hear from you. I'd like to send you any information. I'd like to invite you. I'm a member of the Alabama Citizens for Constitutional Reform, and we have just engaged the PARCA, the Alabama, it's the Public Affairs Research Council. And so they are now writing stories about the Constitution, because we really need to try to change the Constitution, because even if we all decided in the state of Alabama that we want to make a change, the Constitution won't let us even scare anybody into doing that. We cannot even work as a group to make changes to the Constitution. We have to go through the legislators that we currently have, who really don't care for us to begin with. So I'm rambling, I know, but
Yes.
I hope that I've given you enough information that you understand that we need to help the young people. We need to get them. We don't need to keep stopping their lives with the diploma from high school. Thank you so much. Thank you, Judy.
Yes, ma'am. And so we appreciate your conversation and your foresight and your insight into this. And so part of this project is setting the framework and the ground and the foundation for greater investment in the Black Southern women that come out of Alabama. Our goal through this project, the Black Southern Women's Collaborative, is about women in the South who are doing the work of social justice work and bringing them together to get them trained in MOVE projects that really changes the surface, but not just the first surface, the infrastructure of the states in which they live. The fellows from this particular cohort, we are the first initial cohort. Our decision to launch this project and do this project was because we wanted to be intentional about being able to start building out an infrastructure, starting a blueprint of work that can be built upon and shared with others, especially with us understanding what it means to be mothers and grandmothers, wives and sisters in this community and in these spaces where the conversations are taking place, but the conversations aren't being documented in a way that we can go to funders to say, this is where we need dollars and where money needs to be put. Our goal with this project was to be able to say, look, there's real talent here in Alabama. And that if there's investments made, we can bring about change in this community. What we understand is that some of the legends of the civil rights, era, we go unnamed. Many people don't even know who they are or what the roles were of Black, not just Black women, but white women as well. When we talk about the welfare mothers reform, that reform, when it was taking place during the civil rights era, it was an easy way for moderate to low income white families to join and support the civil rights movement because they were also being impacted by these things. So this is a conversation about how we're starting to have a real conversation, ask for investment into community, bring the community along in what we are doing, and also saying to them, your voice matters and it's important. With this particular survey, we will be sharing out. The survey is shared out to those respondents that took part in this project. So they can see that we did not just come in and take their conversation and run away with it. No, we want them to be able to see when they speak up what it means and how it can lead to substantial change. And finally, I just want to say that we had to be intentional with our data because people have asked us for data, and you'll find that we're very, very tight with it. And the reason why is oftentimes people come into African American community or low-income communities, they take our data and profit from it, and then make no investment back into the community. We wanted to be good stewards of the conversations and of how we handle the people we were in contact with, in relationship with. It's one of those things that we've seen our information, we've seen our voices be co-opted so many times for the benefit of others, that we want to show people that not only are we capable of organizing ourselves, collecting our data, being good stewards of the data, but also using it to bring about change in our state. And so I just want to say, on behalf of my colleagues and the ladies that walked with me on this project, we thank you all for listening. There is an all-female lineup, and it was intentional because it is about what women are able to do and how much we have carried. It's not to say that we did not have men with us along the way, because the bishops and all of them had to green light us into their spaces. But what we want to say, and we had to have men that carried us and guarded us and protected us, and that when we got out there in community, they were good to us, okay? We ate more food than we should have eaten. We got to laugh, and we got to experience Black joy while we did this project. And that's the last thing I want to end on.
Onayemi, there were a few questions in the chat.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead with a few questions.
I'm going to read the first one, and I see that hadn't been answered, and maybe it has, but I didn't see it. It's from Abby Feeder. When the respondents listed housing as the top issue, was it more cost of housing or availability of housing or something else related to housing?
The way our survey was set up, we kept everything kind of on the surface level because we wanted to keep it short.
Okay.
And so they just identified housing. That is part of the second round to dig deeper, to drill down. And so this is a layering project.
Okay.
So we did not go into the minutia, as my mama would say, of every subject matter. We were just trying to start laying something for people to be able to gravitate to and engage with us.
Okay. Next question, was there a breakdown in the ages of the survey respondents?
No.
Okay. And hold on. You've answered surveys. Hold on. I'm just trying to scan through here to see if there's anything. You know what? I think that was it. You've answered everything else. So I just wanted to hit them all if we could. So that's excellent.
Okay.
So did you have any, we've got a little bit more time and then I'll close this out. Are you done?
So my only other thing I wanted to say is that this project people asked us, how did we get so many respondents? How we got so many people to participate? That has been an ongoing question. Is we engaged our people during a time of Black joy and not Black crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And how people are open and being receptive to be engaged at a time when they're in joy is completely different from the response you're going to get during Black crisis. And we had conversation with folks, and we explained to people about what it meant and why we were there and what it would mean to us for us to have them share with us their thoughts in a way where we could create data points. And again, we pray that you all will stand in solidarity with us as we continue this work. As the second wave of this comes out, is meant to be for nonprofits who are doing work to start thinking about what are being said at the kitchen tables of people in Alabama. And as we're going into 2026, when we have a gubernatorial race for a governor who's at term, how are we crafting the narrative around what real Alabamians really want to say and how they're being impacted. And that will be the next layer that we'll start to deal with as we move this project forward, about elevating the voices. And so with that, I'm going to create some space for my co-laborers to give their final words and conversation about this report.
May I say one more thing, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead, Marva. Just
Oh, okay.
couple of
Thank
minutes.
you. Thank you, Kathy. Please visit the site Alabama Act. It's one word, alabamaact.org. That's a volunteer group of folks trying to get to help move SB 91. Linda Coleman Madison, Senator Linda Coleman Madison plans to re-sponsor that bill again. So if you have, we can build up with some people so that she'll have support to get, we've got to actually not put fear into the legislators, but we have to let them know that we want them to really work for people. And the other thing so if you visit alabamaact.org, we can keep you apprised of what we're doing for getting SB 91 passed so that we can have funding to go into the trust fund. And I will shut up right now.
Thank you, Marva. I'll talk to you more about maybe a follow-on program related to transportation, because that's a need as well. But Onyemi and the rest of you, you were gonna.
Ranada, Cam, T.
I do want to just underscore some of the points that Onyemi just made by providing some context of just the research that is out there about Black voters. So in the short term, as folks on this call are trying to engage Black voters in this election season, I really do want to underscore the importance of leaning into Black joy versus Black crisis. Black voters respond much more readily when they are oriented toward hope and joy and what the future could look like. And so while, yes, it is important to remind folks of what's at stake, it is also important not to only lean into fear and scarcity, because many times what that does in Black communities is just to have them shut down. Because it's just like, what's the point? Why should I, go through all of the rigmarole that it takes to vote at times? Y'all know how it is in the South. We have to make it a point. We have to be committed to the act of voting sometimes, especially if it's raining or if the lines are long or all of these other things. And so if you can give voters something to look forward to, something to hope for, something to celebrate, they are much more likely to engage and to actually follow through. So I do want to just really emphasize that, because in many of the messaging briefings that I attend, a lot of it is very fear-based, and that simply does not work for Black voters. So just keep that in mind as you're out engaging voters this season.
Cam?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank everybody for coming this evening, and I wanted to really uplift the recommendation that we have about intergenerational conversations. They are so needed, and I have learned so much from these women in this space. This is my first time organizing like this to this capacity, but also as a young person, I offered some things as well. And I think as we are approaching this election season, it's, of course, voting is important, but as more young people are beginning to get more engaged, they are maybe concerned not about just voting, but things like transportation, access to reproductive health care, and things that may be outside of the voting paradigm, but they are still interested in and want to get involved around. So I encourage you all to listen to young people and not shut us out just because we're not discussing voting. Voting is crucial, voting is essential, but voting is not the first or the last step. So I definitely want to encourage everyone to listen to young people and really offer intentional advice that really benefits our collective liberation. So that's all I have for this evening.
See?
Thank you all again for the opportunity to speak before you this afternoon and be in space with you. I just want to leave you with a couple of things is about being in community. Be in community with folks. Not necessarily coming with, I got something for you per se, or I'm going to change your community. That's not the approach. The community knows what the community needs. And so when you have a conversation with folks, it goes a long way, and having genuine conversation and following up. People know more than you think they know. They just may need a space to process it. And so it is very vital that I always say, just have a simple conversation. Anna Yemi spoke a lot about being in Black Joy at these events. We were there and people invited us, they welcomed us, and having a porch conversation or just sitting down with somebody over a cup of water may take you a long way. So always keep in mind, the community knows what the community needs, and they are the experts.
And for the BSWC, and we just ask that those of you all who have joined us tonight, we ask you to read the full report, and then we ask you to share it with 2 or 3 people. And the reason why we're asking you to share it with 2 or 3 people, so that when we go back out here again, people will understand what we're striving for and why we're asking questions and why we're out here asking them to participate and support this effort. Because as long as other people are the ones who are in control of what it means to be Southern, what it means to be in Alabama, and in control of our narrative, how will we ever be able to tell the story of what it really is? This is about us retaking the narrative of what really is going on, of what really is happening to us in communities and what's really important to us. Up until now, what we experienced was somebody else was controlling the narrative and they had the narrative. We're looking to take back that power and give community the ability to be, once again, create the story that is reflective of the experience. We appreciate each and every one of you all that joined us, that took your time out and gave it to us. We cherish that. And we just ask you to read the full report, give us feedback. And when we go back out here again, if the 4 of us, because on the ground it was 4 of us, Ranada processed the data, if 4 of us had the ability to engage almost 1,900 people over a 3-month period of time, just imagine what we would be able to do if we did this in community and really got out there and engaged the people in the community, and we developed documents that are reflective, that are unreputed, and we're able to back it up with data. Just think of what the trails we could blaze and the people we would empower to lift their voice, and we can change the Constitution, and we can get SB 91 passed, because then we would be able to vote and put into power people that were reflective of the values that we hold a communal value. And so with that, we say thank you. We appreciate you. And Kathy, we thank you for everything you did to help support us on this journey. And we look forward to working with you all again soon. Thank you.
You know, I wanted to say this was such an amazing presentation, and thank you, each of you, for sharing it with us, because I think we're all kind of excited. I know looking at those graphs, I was already picking up some of the things we're starting to work on in different topics like reproductive rights, and that's something we've been trying to figure out. Where do you grab hold of? And you start realizing that that's one of the foundational issues that affects every woman and everyone in Alabama is suffering because of what's happening in Alabama right now with reproductive health. So, this data is just got so much information, and thank you. And I wanted to point out that one of the things we're doing with this voter education series is to help, if you go back and look at the different topics, what we're trying to do is to understand the issues better, but also give us all tools so that we can, talk to people about the issues that they care about, or point them to a video where they go watch it, like this report here. So thank you. And I wanted to point out to everyone else, I just got a confirmation that on Monday, July 17th, we're going to have our next voter education forum, which is if you saw the news this week, the PARCA organization came out with a report about democracy in Alabama and basically the shortfalls. And so the gentleman who created that report is going to come talk to us along with a couple of others. So, we really like to hear this kind of learn as we go and do better. And so Onyemi and Renata, Cameron, and T Barnes, I guess I'll call you T, I guess, but I want to say thank you. And everyone will send out this recording, along with a link to the report that they had. And so just send it out to anyone and everyone and let's share it. And from all of us, we want to just say good night, have a great evening, and we're going to change Alabama.